Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners recess meeting for Tuesday, May 25th, 2021 at 2 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order and note that all commissioners are present, county manager, clerk, and Ms. Margaret also. Let me ask you to silence your mobile devices. If you have devices that are going to make a noise, please take care of that at this time. And I would ask you to be sure the microphone is on when you come to the podium to speak. Be sure the red light is on, and that'll help us hear you better and also record the meeting. All right, gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda at this time. You've had the agenda for a day or so. Let me entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Manny. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. I think that's all of us, Madam Clerk. We have several items for discussion today. First item comes from Finance, Volunteer Fire Department, request for tax rate change. This will be presented by Margaret Pierce, our Deputy County Manager and Finance Director, and or Chief Robinson from Chesterfield Fire and Rescue Association.
Mr. Britton, I will turn that over to Chief Robinson to speak on Chesterfield's behalf.
Afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon. Chesterfield Fire and Rescue is requesting an increase for our tax rate. It's been several years since we've done this. Obviously, a couple weeks ago when we were here and we met, we talked about the purchase of our new fire apparatus. This increase would help us to go ahead and pay that off sooner, which we had presented in our purchase of this. Also, since making that presentation to you, we sustained some damage to our building. We're looking like we're going to have to replace the roof on the building. So this is also going to obviously help to offset that cost. If you go back and review our budgetary expenses over the last several years, we've not been able to put any money back into our investments for our department. Everything has basically been a status quo over the last several years because we have not asked for a tax increase. So our current plan is to go to that 13 cents on $100 of evaluation. And then what we would like to do after the 5-year period is to back that down to 11 cents, which would put us still in the marginal area. We would not be the highest among other fire departments within the county, nor the lowest. We would be right in the middle of the road as soon as our debt was settled with the purchase of this fire apparatus.
All right, thank you, Chief. Gentlemen, you've seen this information. Any questions for the Chief on this? Chief, when I looked through it, I looked for your advertising for the comment. I see where you did that for your apparatus. I'm not sure I saw where you asked for public comment on the annual meeting, and when I look at your annual meeting notes, I see there that a rate increase was discussed, but not nearly to this level.
Yes, sir. Our annual meeting that was done in August, we discussed going all the way to the 13 cents, and it was approved by the board of directors and voted on by the community and approved by all community members that were present. I can provide the additional notes if you don't have our annual meeting notes from August.
Margaret, help me if I'm wrong. Maybe my math's not too good, but this looks like your notes talk about an increase of 13% for 5 years, and then level off at 11%. And the community vote for a tax increase was 4% years 1 through 5, and then 2. But unless I'm not reading this quite right, it looks like a 44% increase in the tax rate from 9 cents to 13 cents.
Yes, sir. I believe it's worded incorrectly. We were looking to go from that 9 cents to 13 cents on $100 of evaluation. That was what was discussed. I also have the president of the board here as well.
And I did have, I don't know about anybody else, but back in the fall, I had a couple calls concerning the potential for an increase. Of course, I advised the folks that called me that that would not come until this point in time, and I hadn't heard back from anybody at that point. But gentlemen, is everybody good with that kind of increase? I'm taking that as a yes. Any questions for the chief? Anything else, Margaret, chief? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you, chief, for being here.
Thank you, gentlemen.
This brings us to item number 2, presentation of master plan and funding requests for Oak Hill Community Park and Forest. This will be presented by Andrew Cote, Executive Director of Foothills Conservancy. Afternoon, Andrew. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioners, good afternoon. When I presented to you quite a few slides here, and so I'll try to roll through several of them quickly to get to the meat of it, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to look at some of the pages from our park master plan, and if you had time to delve into that at a later date then. But I'll touch on some of the highlights. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present this to you today. And I also want to thank the county commissioners for voting recently to approve an acceptance of the donation of 17-acre Jonas Ridge Bog property from Foothills Conservancy. We look forward to completing that transfer in the upcoming weeks. So our goal is, and our hope is that this property in Oak Hill, which I'll show a map of in a second, will quickly become an important natural and community asset for Burke County, the citizens here, as well as draw some visitors to the area. And we welcome any partnership, collaboration, and support from Burke County possible now and into the future on developing this into a public asset. Our request was for $10,000 in this budget fiscal year. But again, we welcome any type of support the county is willing and able to offer for this. The park master planning process and final plan was completed by Destination by Design, landscape design and planning firm out of Boone. So the first final draft was completed about 2-3 weeks ago, and we expect the final draft in the upcoming weeks, and that will be available to the public on our website. We used a steering committee to help guide this planning process and the conceptual vision for the park, and that committee included community members, teachers, local farmers, archaeologist Dr. David Moore, who's involved in the Juara dig, and local county and city planning staff as well, and Conservancy board and staff members. This map will orient you to the property and its location. It is about a 3.5-mile drive from downtown Morganton. It takes about 6 to 8 minutes to drive to the tract from here. 652 acres, and the red outline is obviously the property boundary. Over 2 years, the Conservancy raised $2.9 million in funding from private foundations and contributions, 2 state grants, a federal grant from the U.S. Forest Service Community Forest Program, and several $100,000 of the Conservancy's money to secure this tract. You can see its location here. It has some frontage along NC 126, about 1.5 miles west of Freedom High School. And this is the main access point here. We also, a section of the land adjoins NC 181 in the northern boundary and Watermill Road on the western boundary. And we have 2 pieces of land that come out to 126 here just before La Ferret and then past the curve in the road as well. So good access. Canoe Creek is the main stream that runs through the property, and it includes several tributary streams as well. Our project goals is really to transform the property into a public resource that enhances the quality of life for the citizens of Burke County and attracts some tourism as well. We want to offer easily accessible outdoor recreation opportunities and some nature-based education programs so that adults and children can learn about important environmental topics and conservation topics. Obviously, our hope is that over time, it'll help promote economic growth in the county as well by attracting some tourism through outdoor recreation activities. And we'd like to see it connected to some of the other natural and recreational assets throughout the county as well. Just a quick snapshot of the phases of the planning process. Obviously, it began with some significant property analysis and evaluation, some concept ideas through the steering committee. We did invite public engagement and public comment once we got to a firm conceptual vision for the property, and then that led us to a final plan. This slide simply shows Burke County's branding as nature's playground because of the community, natural, and outdoor recreational assets that are throughout the county. And our hope, obviously, is that this can become an important piece of that nature's playground and the recreational assets that are available. You see the property here in conjunction with some of these assets. Its proximity to School for Science and Math and Western Piedmont Community College, the state game lands, state park here, and South Mountains and Lake James, obviously the Pisgah National Forest, and a multitude of public trails in various stages of concept development or completion, including the Catawba River Trail here, Over Mountain Victory Trail, the Fauna Flora State Trail, which we would love to see pass through the property or be connected to the property on its way out to the lake, and the Wilderness Gateway State Trail, one of our newest state trails. The planning process considered some other local plans that had been done recently, including two natural resource plans, a forestry plan that we have for the community forestry plan that we have for the tract, and a community agricultural feasibility study. We looked at both the OVT trail plan and Fauna Flora State Trail, and of course we referenced Burke County's comprehensive parks and recreation master plan. Public engagement, public input was a part of this project from day one. Back in March of 2019, we reached out to the public to really understand if this is something that they wanted the Conservancy to be involved in. Did they want us to try to secure and protect the tract for public use? And then we involved the public in the planning process as well recently. Overwhelmingly, this is our first meeting at Oak Hill United Methodist Church back in March of 2019, I think it was. And we've overwhelmingly heard public support for this property, not just the conservation of it, but also developing infrastructure that will allow public use in the future. The Burke County Parks and Rec plan from back in 2014 had a survey of about 2,200 residents, and overwhelmingly here, trails were ranked as one of the most important facilities that could be developed to improve Burke County. Sort of out of the top 5 trails are 4 of those top 5. So we hope that this project, this property will deliver some of those important facilities as well. Again, an oversight committee helped with the planning process from November of 2020 through May of this year, and really drove the conceptual framework for the property and its current or its future uses. We had to meet virtually primarily because of COVID-19, but we were able to do that through Zoom. Over a 3-week period in April, we invited public input and public feedback and public comment by posting about an 8-minute video on our website that presented the plan in that stage before its final version. And we had about 260 views of that video, and 57 people submitted comments and feedback. So that led us to the final recommendations and the final master plan in its current state, which we have broken down into 3 planning areas. And I'll show maps of each of these 3 planning areas. So community forest and recreational trail system, a primary development and access area, and then a secondary access and trailhead along 181. So the entirety of the property has the opportunity to be used for those community forest activities, restoration activities for some of the areas that had been clear cut before we were able to acquire the property. So we'll be doing forest management to improve those areas, and that will also incorporate some educational opportunities. Community agriculture, which is part of this plan for the future, in some of these ag fields near 126. And this is the location, a trail system throughout, and you can see these lines, although the next map will show them in greater detail. A primary development and access area off of 126, which is where currently our best access to the land is, and then a secondary trailhead and access area for the future off of 181. Proposed here is about 20 to 25 miles of public use trails, multi-use trails, including beginner mountain bike and hiking trails, an intermediate section of trail, about 8 miles, and then some advanced mountain biking trails on this section of the property for the future. The brown line, or the orangish line, bold line, is a easy greenway style trail along that circumvents some of the agricultural fields and provides good use for all ages and all types of users. Some hiking only options as well. That was revealed in the public engagement process, that some hiking only options be included. And this section here is the high point of the property, just about right in the center of the tract, that offers really amazing views of the South Mountains to the south and the Blue Ridge off to the west and north. This slide really kind of dives deeply into some of the concepts for our primary development area. I'll touch on a few of those resources here, that infrastructure here. NC 126 here on the south side of the tract is our best access and our current access to the property. And at this moment, what our first priority is to improve that access point so that we can get the public onto the property, and to construct this main trailhead and parking area here and prepare this secondary parking area here. Obviously into the future, what we'd love to see in this area is an education center of some sort, a nature playground option, outdoor classroom, so that folks with young children can learn a little bit more about the landscape, conservation, and environmental topics, and they're not forced to just have to hike or bike on the trail system. So historical discovery area, we have reason to believe there's some archaeological resources out here, and with the help of Warren Wilson College, we'd like to explore that and do some public educational events around that as well. A little bit farther back in the property off of that main access road is a community event center near our agricultural, or adjoining the agricultural fields. This is a beautiful location. Back off the road, you're essentially viewing this sort of low-lying ag field, the creek boundary and the forested areas around it. And our vision is to offer a community event center in the future, construct that for any type of event really, but to sort of promote community events on this property in the future. And trail system would circumvent this area and link to the educational area and the other trail system throughout. Again, this property has access on the north end through a strip of land that's a couple 100 feet wide, touching 181, just this side of the United Methodist Church prior to Oak Hill School. There's a strip of forested land in between some of the homes on 181, and that is a part of this property. And in that area, we've planned a trailhead and parking area, and this neat concept here, which is a drive-in camping option. So how to implement all of this? The plan came with a budget estimate, and I'm almost afraid to mention what that is. It's at the gold standard. What they had proposed to us, Destination by Design, was gold standard of everything. And so I asked them, perhaps we could look at an aluminum standard to save a little bit of money here and there. And so we'll work on some of those estimates as we prioritize some of the infrastructure. But two state programs that offer funding that would be applicable to this property are the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund and the Recreational Trails Program. As a nonprofit, we are able to apply to the RTP program, and we intend to do that in this upcoming cycle for some funding support for the developing the trail system. We are unable to access funds to the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. Local governments can apply to that program, and so that's one way that Burke County could participate and support this project. Our organization, our land trust, set aside several $100,000 at the end of last year that we hope to leverage through these types of programs and through other fundraising to initiate some of the park infrastructure development. And so we have matching resources for some of these programs, and we intend to continue to raise funds. But leveraging those monies will be important to help us out with this project. Obviously, we've prioritized some of these, the development of this property out through, anywhere from 10 to 15 years, and beginning with improvements to the entrance road, construction of the main trailhead, and parking area off of 126, and the first 5 to 8 miles of trail. A local trail designer, Tim Johnson, has agreed to align the trail, design the trail, the first 5 to 8 miles on the ground, and he'll be finished with that work probably this fall. And that's an in-kind donation from Tim. So we'll have the trail system, or part of the trail system, flagged by well before the end of this year, and we'd like to continue right into building those trails. In the upcoming weeks, we're clearing the main trailhead and parking area, and we're doing a little bit of forest management farther back in the property to sort of prepare some of these areas for public access. Our hope is that we'll be able to invite the public onto the property for trail use in 2022, next year. I have two budget estimates in this presentation. This first one is an estimate from the plan. You can see some differences in the amount of funds that it would take to prepare and the entrance road and construct the entrance road, the parking area. This estimate comes out at about $300,000, whereas more of a design build scenario we think could be closer to maybe $70,000. And this is based off of an estimate from a road construction company. So again, gold standard, engineered road, which is ideal because it will get a lot of use, we think, compared to a design build scenario. But we really don't know until we kind of dive into that, which we are planning on doing in the upcoming weeks here. So that's just a sort of a general overview of what we have at this point. Again, we invite and welcome any support that Burke County can help the Conservancy with. We do truly believe this is an important community asset, and it will be for years to come. This is a photo of the property from a drone. It's just a beautiful landscape out there. A week from Friday, so next Friday, we've invited all the commissioners and some city officials as well to join us on the property at 10 a.m. Friday, June 5th. We've sent you invitations by email. We'll resend those or get in touch some other way to meet the North Carolina State Parks Director, Dwayne Patterson, who will be in town for a couple days. And we'd love to sort of mosey through the lower section of the property, show you the landscape, and get to meet Dwayne if you're available. So thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cota. Gentlemen, you've heard this information. This item is not included in the county manager's recommended budget. So at this point, I'd like to entertain any discussion or thoughts you might have as to whether or not to change that.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question for Andrew, because I'm out that way all the time. So there's a gravel road going up the hill already.
Yes.
So that's the entrance.
It's just past that gravel road, so that is an improvement from the power company. There's an overhead power line there.
There is.
And then directly next to that is, I'll show you this, a parcel of that property that had been divided out and sold. Let me see here. There's a gravel road into this parcel here.
Yes.
So someone had purchased that before we got the property under contract. And so the private road goes into this tract, and then this is an overhead power line coming off of 126, and the electric company has improved that right of way. So we do own that section, but the next gravel road is to a private parcel. So our access is here, just past the Canoe Creek produce stand.
Oh, yeah.
You'll see a red gate. That's the entrance. Yeah.
Okay. Right there by the field.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Mr. Chairman. Andrew, I noticed your total was $66,340. And how many miles does that include?
I think that is for 1,000 feet of road improvement plus roughing in the parking area.
And but you said you were connecting trails?
Right. So that budget was not shown. Trails are approximately anywhere from $4 to $6 per linear foot. So the first 5 to 8 miles of trail would be, I think the first 5 miles would be somewhere in the $130,000 range for construction. But what we've requested from the county, obviously any support over the years is welcome. But we're at this point looking at improving the access road, widening it. We're looking at gravel surface at this point, not paved surface, and then sort of a basic parking area and trailhead at this point.
And you have $660,000 committed to this project?
We have $400,000 that the Conservancy has set aside at this point to hopefully leverage with grants and fundraising.
In the future, when you get it constructed, what is the cost to upkeep and maintain and personnel? I don't know if you're going to call it govern or to look over that trail or that part of the trail.
Right. Yeah. So this is not an operations plan, and we haven't dug into that fully, so we don't know what the long-term costs will be. We're hoping for support from various groups, friends groups, possibly Burke County Parks and Rec, our volunteer program. for some of the basic trail maintenance. At this point, you know, typically trails that have a good sustainable design to them and construction process where they help to shed water, and I'm sure you know a little bit about that with the Fauna Flora State Trail. So long-term management, that hopefully mitigates some of their offset some of the long-term management costs. But we haven't done a cost analysis for the long-term management and maintenance. We're really just prioritizing pieces as we go and as we're able to raise the funds. So we're hoping for partnerships on
And
those plans.
I drifted away trying to do a little math for a moment or two during your presentation, and you might have said this, so I apologize if you did. How many other trails are you going to interconnect with this project?
Well, our plan, our concept for this is about 20 miles of public trails on the property itself. To connect to trails off the property, you know, that is not something that we would be able to do, but we would be able to support or work in collaboration with the county or whatever other entity is or agency is working on those. But we do hope this will be a connection for the Fauna Flora State Trail between, you know, the Freedom Park area and the lake, sort of a jumping off point or a little pocket park on the way out to the lake.
At this point, does the Conservancy know if they will have continuing funds after it's completed to care for the trails?
No, we don't know at this point. This will be a project that will sort of wrap into our fundraising forward and likely do some campaign for in the future.
That's all I have, Mr. Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
Andrew, did you say you could not get part of monies? Was that what I understood?
That's correct. Yes.
How about RTP?
Yes, we can.
DEQ?
I'm sorry.
DEQ?
I'm not sure which program.
Do they have clean water?
Yes, we can get land and water funds. We had a grant of 1.2 million through the land and water fund, which was previously called Clean Water, to acquire the tract. They don't support, well, they support greenway projects, but they don't support trail construction projects necessarily.
And all of this is speculative or hope that you'll get money?
I'm optimistic that we will, in my mind, it's not speculative.
And the dollar amount was around 600 and some thousand if it came through. If your optimism is good.
Well, we have 400,000 set aside at this point. At this point, again, we haven't done any fundraising for this yet. We have begun writing grants, smaller grants for matching funding, but we hope to leverage each one of those dollars as we raise them. So I foresee a campaign, a fundraising campaign for us based specifically around this park, and that will likely be ongoing in the future.
The number one outcome of having this park is?
To allow public use and public outdoor recreation, public education on this property, to give the citizens of Burke County a place to recreate outside that's easily accessible.
Other questions, comments? Any further direction at this time?
Mr. Chairman, you know, this fits in our vision and my viewpoint. You know, they've always been good stewards of the land and their money. You know, and I know some of it is good faith, but so was Fauna Flora Trail, which is going to be really close, probably be interconnected at some point. So, you know, to me, you know, this kind of fits into our vision. So I would say we support it at some level, whether it's the 10,000 or not. That's just my viewpoint.
Thank you, Scott. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I had one afterthought that I'd like to ask Andrew. You've got some agricultural land separated. What's gonna be grown on that? You're just calling it agricultural?
At this point, so the agricultural fields are in the lower section of the property on both sides of Canoe Creek. We currently have a conservation easement is applied to this property, about 275 acres of this property. And some of that encompasses the ag field, so we're unable to do agricultural production or management within a 300-foot buffer of Canoe Creek and some of its tributaries, so which cuts off some of that acreage. We're able to maintain early successional vegetation and habitat there, and that's actually the location of the greenway style trail that we'd like to, the sort of the level trail that we'd like to offer on the property. We currently have a 3-year lease with a local farmer who will, I think he's going to do a rotation of corn and barley, so an overwinter crop. And the idea there is to get some of that barley into the hands of the local breweries so that they can use it for beer production. So that's
the acreage of that agriculture, is it 50 acres?
Total is almost 80 acres, but with the easement applied, I think that reduces it down to about 50 acres.
Other comments this time?
Jeff, I also would like to see us try to fund a small fund of this, maybe 10,000 or something like that. I think this is really a worthy project for Burke County.
Thank you. I think the benefits are going to far exceed anything we could put into this thing. Mr. Chairman, I was trying to get a handle on the future, and that's the reason I asked those questions. And I'm like, Wayne, I don't mind agreeing with 10,000, but I think when we get these kind of presentations, we need to start taking a long view look at things. And you understand it's a one commitment only. We're not extended. Excuse me, I'm not agreeing to extend at this point. But this is not personal to anybody here, but a comment I heard the other day that was directed at me, obviously. And when I say the other day, it's been 6 weeks, 2 months ago. Said we were going to have more parks and trails and we had play areas for the kids in school, or more than we have school. So I think at some point, as a county, we're going to have to look at, is there more need for that kind of thing, et cetera, but it's not now. It's not what I'm recommending or asking now. I just think that we have to, at one point or another, begin to look at, is there really that need for that much more, since we've been very good and very aggressive, and if people like it, people are happy, they like trails, and after you tramp around on the cement jungle for days upon days and weeks upon weeks, it's nice to get out to Mother Earth. So, but just as a comment, we need to be aware of that.
I think, Jeff, it says a lot if we step up to the plate in the beginning for their future fundraising. When they see Burke County steps up to the plate, I think that'll help them a lot.
Other comment? Am I hearing consensus or direction to the manager on this item to go with the request?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager, we'll add this to your budget, please, sir. All right. This brings us to item number 3, Friends of Fontaflora State Trail funding request. This comes from Beth Pilot, Executive Director. Afternoon, Beth.
Good afternoon. Nice to see you guys again. Before I start in the Fontaflora presentation, I just wanted to add on to Andrew's invitation to meet Dwayne Patterson. I am a member of the State Parks and Recreation Trust Fund Authority, so I'm one of 9 people across the state who awards grants to local municipalities and local governments. And it's a project between Foothills Conservancy and myself to bring Dwayne Patterson, the State Parks Director, here to Burke County to see what we have with the Wilderness Gateway State Trail, the Fonta Flora State Trail, what's going on at Lake James State Park, to visit Rutherford College. They just got a part of grant. So in addition to the Friday morning of going to Oak Hill Park, we're also having a reception at Whippoorwill Farm. So that will be Thursday afternoon from 4 to 6. If you can't make Friday or you want to do both, stop by and see Dwayne in a more casual manner. He put forth to have all kids in parks. He started a program for 5th graders to make sure they are able to visit a state park, and Burke County was a pilot program for that. So our 5th grade science teachers went to South Mountain State Park just before the pandemic to start getting trained on what they would do when they bring the kids to a state park. So we're going to have some teachers there talking about their experience. So you would have gotten an email about that also, so I hope you'll come out and see Director Patterson sometime. But on to the Fonta Flora State Trail. I sent this by email that Kay forwarded, and I know she printed it again. So since I saw you last, just an update of all we've been doing with Friends of the Fonta Flora State Trail. But I think the questions you had for me last time wasn't really big picture of what we've been doing. It's more about what can we do for Burke County, and I get it. I have 4.5 things that I can do for Burke County. First of all is offer volunteers for trail maintenance. Shane Prisby contacted me last week about starting to get volunteers out there. He's working on a waiver with the county, and each jurisdiction wants their own wording and what volunteers need to sign. And as soon as we have that ready, we'll start bringing volunteers out to help with the Fonta Flora Trail in Burke County. Secondly, I'd mentioned it before, McDowell Tech has started their trail maintenance and design classes in Marion. I attended their inaugural class and got a lot out of that, and they are going to require their students to have 40 hours a week on their last week of class, and they are also willing to send their newly trained students down here to work on the trail. So volunteers for maintenance. I know everybody's worried about maintenance expense. Another thing is to have private donors to back up grants or work on projects. For example, if you can't fund the Gwaltney Trailhead, or if you need a new amenity at a trailhead. We've been talking to donors in the Burke County area, but they're not ready to just commit to a general donation. They would like to see a certain project. So if you have something in mind that you would like to see happen, let us know, and we'll go back to those donors and say, hey, what do you think about this? Would you like to be a part of that and see it come to be? Another thing, as Andrew mentioned, is the Fonta Flora State Trail coming through Oak Hill Park. That is something we would like to see happen, and if Burke County would like for it to happen, I think it would take some of the weight off of your shoulders. Right now, the Fonta Flora Trail was looking at staying down along the Catawba River, but I think there's some issues with easements from all the different landowners down there. Shane Prisby is aware of this. He was on the steering committee for the Oak Hill Park, and he's on the advisory council of Fonta Flora State Trail, so I'm not like going around anybody. It would be a great feature to have Fonta Flora State Trail go through Oak Hill Park for the benefit of the park and to help the trail move forward and take some weight off of the county. If you have Foothills involved working on that, they're going to want to see it connect, so they're going to push more. And Foothills is a little more nimble than a county government. For example, they helped us out with the Fonta Flora in McDowell County. We had 11 acres that we needed for the trail to pass through. It was going to take forever for McDowell County to get it purchased. Foothills purchased it and holding it until McDowell County can pay for it. So having them on board gives you a little more options, a little more flexibility. The other thing that I just thought of this because the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's like every time I turn around, people are talking about, is there going to be camping on the trail? Where can we camp? Because now that we're getting it out there, it's 100 miles, people are going to want to through hike that. And can they stop? At what point can they stop and hike along the way? There is going to be camping at Oak Hills Park, so you can, start downtown Morganton at the Fonta Flora Brewery and go 6 miles or so and camp your first night. If you're a family, you're probably going to make 5 or 6 miles. I realize if you're a little more healthy and agile and don't have kids dragging around with you, you might make 12. But I've started looking at that. Where can we have camping added along? The other thing is, again, I mentioned before, with some support to be able to continue the executive director position, is to make sure this project doesn't just stay in Burke County, to make sure it doesn't die here. Because right now, it's here, and people in Burke County know about it, but a lot of other people don't. So if we can get it on up to Marion, to Old Fort, to Asheville, when someone's in their tourism centers, they'll say, oh, you can get on the Fonta Flora here and go all the way to Morganton. If the trail's never there and they're never promoting it, no one's ever going to say, go all the way to Burke County, go to Lake James. And the last one, I kind of give this a half because it's just come up in the last few weeks. I'm getting more and more emails just about the trail. Where can I get on the trail? What can I do on the trail? Where can I access it? And I'd asked Ed Phillips before about some tourism numbers of how many people are coming to Burke County to get on the Fonta Flora Trail. Because, I mean, the parking lots are full. And he said right now he doesn't have numbers because people don't come here to do Fonta Flora. They get here and learn about the Fonta Flora, but there's not like a bigger marketing campaign out there. So I feel like the hiking learns we've been doing and getting the word out is creating more interest for people to come to Burke County. So it's kind of like I'm a new contact of pushing the trail and getting it out there. So that's my response to what can I do for Burke County versus, you know, what am I doing for all three counties? And I try to be equal in what I do. But then I want to hand over to Judge Bob Hunter to talk a little bit about what other funding options we are looking at.
Thank you, Beth. Commissioners, and especially Commissioner Carswell, who's on our board and a valuable member. Beth is a jewel. We started working with the Friends of Fonta Flora State Trail. The last time we met with you, I think I told you, it came out of a meeting of the Friends of Lake James State Park. And that was November a year and a half ago. And so it took us a while to get organized. And we've gotten organized now. Fortunately, McDowell County loaned us their recreation trails person, IT person, Blair Melton. She's leaving now and going to Michigan with her husband, so they're losing her. But for the last little bit, we've had Blair a little bit, but Beth came in February, and since February, we've made amazing progress. And it's taken some of the work off me because sometimes I felt like I was a part-time executive director. But you've seen some of the things there in that information, and I'm not going to go over them again. Let me just point out that Burke County and McDowell County really are gifted. I guess you could say God gifted us when he gave us Lake James and the Lake James State Park. And that's probably the biggest draw for McDowell and Burke County is why people come to this area. And the two focus areas of the Fonta Flora State Trail right now are Burke County around the lake, and then McDowell has been behind y'all. Y'all got a $10 million from Duke Power, and that really gave you the money to do a lot of the grants and what you've been able to build here, along with the money that y'all have put in as well and the grants. But McDowell's been behind. They've got the Marion Greenway and the McDowell section, and now we've got the project connect those up. But Old Fort is becoming another focus, Old Fort to Black Mountain. That's going to be another hub. With the state purchase of the property up there, leasing it to the town of Old Fort, and we expect to get a grant to develop that property this fall. But Old Fort's already becoming a major bicycle community. And we're just working in the last week to develop a bicycle trail that we really won't have to do much to, get 4 easements, but that will really enhance the town of Old Fort and the businesses up there that are bicycle related. And so even until we get the money to develop that trailhead, we're going to be able to make a significant impact up there. And that's just come about in the last basically 3 weeks since one of the people up there in the bicycling community that runs the Ride House there, that brings in a lot of people, pointed out the need for us to have that. But there's some other things going on. The Black Bear, McDowell County, Duke Power is now doing that. The trail will go through there. That's going to be a county park up at Black Bear, and that will really enhance the trail as well. We've got Duke to agree to extend it a little further across their property to get it to the highway up there. Now we've got to go back from there to connect up to Burke County. That is a major focus, and that's a key link. I want to talk to you about investment because I figure we're asking you for $30,000. I think we pointed out last time how we came up with that amount and the way proportionally that the various 9 local governments that we have in those 3 counties. And so we were able to get enough money. We've got Beth enough money to employ her through July. And then that's just part-time. And when I took this position, I was told if you're going to do an effective job in promoting this trail and taking it from a 30-year plan to a 10-year plan, you got to have a full-time director. And we'd hope to get money to do that. Bridge money, hopefully, because we're trying to get the state to put money in these state trails. And I'll talk briefly about that in a second. But we've got enough to keep her employed through then. If we lose her after that, I don't know what will happen to the organization, but there's no way we can be anywhere near as effective as we have and with the momentum we have right now. Let me talk briefly about what's going on in the state. And I can tell you, 3 of the people that are involved statewide in getting money from the state for trails are in this room today. Beth, Andrew, and myself. And we're part of a key organization that has grown tremendously in 1 year called the Great State Trails Organization. And we've been able to get in the governor's budget money for state trails. The state has not put any state money in trails except for what comes through part of. That's in a little bit of land and water. But there's no designated state funding for trails. The DOT money that comes, and there's a project in McDowell that'll connect up those 2 greenways that we're working on. There's no state money in that, that's federal money. But we're in the governor's budget, and then we've got legislative, a bill introduced. Representative Hugh Blackwell is a leader in the state trails effort in this state, and y'all can be very proud of Hugh for the work that he's done in creating these 2 trails, the Final Four State Trail and the Mountain Gateway. Y'all are very, very fortunate, as is McDowell, because both of them will come through McDowell. We're working in the legislature. They're meeting today on funding. We have a bill that will provide state funding, and if it comes through, there's going to be additional money for Burke and McDowell and these others, especially for the state trails. There's 9 of them, probably going to be a couple more added. And so this is the state's emphasis. DOT has now started recognizing that trails are an important part of what's going on in the state. I was told the other day by McDowell Economic Development Director that the 25 to 50-year-old people that are coming into these industries, what do they look for now? Outdoor recreation. And y'all are blessed, and McDowell's blessed. And so we have an opportunity to take advantage of something that can really mean a lot in developing Burke, McDowell, and Buncombe. Buncombe's got other trails. They haven't gotten interested in this yet, and so we're going to have to keep working with them, except for Black Mountain, to connect that Black Mountain to Old Fort, as I mentioned. One of the things that Beth and I talked to Hugh last week, and he thought, I'm not sure he still thinks, that the money y'all are getting from ARC could be used some for trails. And he said he thought it should be some used for trails. Well, now we're hearing that maybe that can't be used for trails. So we don't know yet the answer to that question. What we don't want to see is the state say, well, you're getting the ARC money, so we're not going to put any state money in it. And then when y'all get the ARC money, say it can't be used for trails, and we end up with nothing when we think this is the year that we're finally going to get something done. And they're passing the year of the trail bill, which will be 2023. So we have a wonderful opportunity to get some money across this state for trails, and Burke and McDowell will be significant beneficiaries of that. This trail is going to bring in a lot of people, and Beth is starting to promote it. We're known now across the state. They know the Fonta Flora State Trail. And so we're in a position to really help Burke County. We think we can raise some money for you when you have a project. We raised $100,000 in Old Fort for that part of grant to develop that property that the state bought up there. And we think we can help y'all as well. So we really think that the $30,000 is an investment and that you're going to reap more benefits from that $30,000 than what we're asking you for. So I would certainly hope that y'all will see fit to put that in there. It really means whether or not probably we can continue and do the job that we think will help Burke, McDowell, and to some degree Buncombe, especially with the Black Mountain project. I think I've included and mentioned most of the things that I meant to, and I just want to tell you how valuable Beth, again, has been, and this money allows us to have a part-time executive director and to run an organization that can help y'all and make a big difference to the lives of the citizens of Burke, McDowell, and Buncombe counties. And let me stop and answer any questions that y'all may have.
All right, thank you, Judge. Appreciate that information. And at this time, I'm going to turn the rest of the meeting over to our Vice Chairman, Mr. Mulwee. I have to excuse myself. I have a business engagement this evening. And so Scott will carry on with the rest of the meeting. And thank you, Judge, again.
And like Beth said, we urge you to take advantage of Director Patterson's visit here. We'll also have him in Old Fort, and those are the two areas he'll be really looking at, and that helps us when we're looking at funds that he's been here. And it won't be long before he'll be back, and we'll be dedicating the visitor center and the bridge at Lake James State Park. And we're working to find a way across Canal Bridge. As soon as we do, we can continue that trail on out through there and keep it going around the lake. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Jeff. Move safely. Okay, any questions?
I just think
Comments?
this is really going to create a niche for us. As long as I lived here, we get tourists off the interstate, stop at some of our businesses and that, but we're not a real tourist destination. People come here, research family history and whatever, but I think in all this trail and these type of things, I think we're creating a niche for ourselves here for the future of Burke County and other counties. But I think we should try to be as involved as we can in this, because I can see a great reward coming down the road on all this. Something that we've never had before. Like I say, the only tourists we get are people doing family history, or they stop from the interstate to eat or whatever. But this is going to give us something in the future that we can really be, I think, famous for.
Dwayne? Any other questions, comments?
Vice Chair, I'm still at the point I was when we discussed this 4 or 5 months ago, 3 or 4, and postponed it to this date. I still support that. I think all of us can look back and see that most of this trails and the park construction has been done by 90% of other regional, national, and state dollars or endowments from Duke or whoever. And I think it's a good investment for us at this point. And I do think, and repeat what I said before, at some time we need to stop and review and say, how much more is needed. But I endorsed this several months ago, and I still would support the $30,000.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I will take a moment to say I want to express my disappointment disappointment in Buncombe County, my disappointment in others that have decided not to give any monetary commitment whatsoever. Other towns have backed out. I guess I hate to see, Judge, I hate to see Burke County take the brunt of this. $30,000 is a lot of money. And we were asked to commit the most, and I know we've received a lot of grants, and we are probably many, many years ahead of others. As far as trails go, so the bottom line is here that a lot of people decided, some people decided not to give, $1,000 from Glen Appin, $1,000 from Old Fort, $5,000 from Black Mountain, $5,000 from Marion. Glad that Marion and McDowell come in and committed, because most of the work to be done now is going to be done in McDowell County, moving on up through Black Mountain, Old Fort. So the bottom line is, if if we don't give money, you're not going to have an executive director. There'll be nobody to do the work that the charter for the Friends says that they're required to do A, B, C, and on down the list of what they're going to do. And Beth's resume is well known in the western part of the state, and probably all the way across the state, what she can do and what she's brought to the table. I want to be real blunt about this. I have some consternation about having to be the one to give the most money, since we've done the most work. And I think you understand that, Judge. I've said that before. But I will not, if the board decides to do this, I will certainly support what the board decides to do on this. I hope the Friends go back to Buncombe County and talk to them again and see if they can't get them to commit, since they're gaining a lot from the trail just as much as anybody else is. That they're getting a good deal of people coming into the western part of the state of North Carolina using our trails now. Like you said, we have a gem. Lake James is nothing but just a diamond in the rough for us. So we that was our vision when we started to do the trail around Lake James. That was Scott's vision, Shane's vision, is to make it as pristine as they can make it a great trail. So people, as Wayne said, people come start looking for us now and say the trail's here. That's it right now, Mr. Vice Chair.
Let me point out one thing, and I should have emphasized it, and I didn't. We've been pushing for state, when I said state funding, that's money for grants. But one of the major things that we've been pushing for, and we're working for, is to get the state to fund each one of these state trails for $150,000, the Friends Group, or the organization that's supporting them. And we're still pushing that, and we are hopeful that we'll get that. And if we get it, we'll return the money to you, because it'll give us the money to operate. So, and the other thing is, if you give us this money and you don't think we've benefited from, if you don't think you've benefited from it, we won't ask you again. As far as Buncombe, that's been a tough nut. But I have to tell you, they don't have anything planned for Fonta Flora. They've got a lot of trails up there. And they've got people coming in up there. They don't need the trails. We and McDowell and Burke need these trails. So we're going to keep trying to get funding from up there. But I would hope you wouldn't let that keep us from being able to be an effective organization and continue to exist.
The point is, you asked them for money and they turned you down.
At this point, but we're still continuing. 2 weeks ago, we had our strategic meeting with Buncombe County, and Nate Pennington there is their director of planning, and they're working on a comprehensive plan right now, and are committed to, they have a Swananoa Greenway, River Greenway coming down through there, that they need to start calling that Fonta Flora State Trail. They get that a Swamp Rabbit Trail or a Damascus Trail, that those kind of things bring people in, a long distance trail. So Nate is a good champion for us there, and is going to start pushing for it. June 10th is my next meeting with Asheville, so we're going to have our strategic planning meeting with the Greenway people, with their Parks and Rec people, instead of, first perhaps we talked to council and mayors and chairmen. Now we're talking to the people who are planning every day and helping them understand what the trail can do, so then we'll be in a better position to ask again. So just because we were told no, I didn't run, tell, and hide. But we're still getting in there every few weeks to make sure they understand what this will bring to Asheville.
Thank y'all. And I will just echo what Johnny, and when y'all came before us last time, that was the point that I made. I've had a little heartburn about us giving more than McDowell. I know the population, whatever. I mean,
And budgets.
And budgets. I understand that, but, we're going to be paying the lion's share in, we've already got most of ours completed. And so it is, we got to sell it to the, taxpayers. We got to be prudent with the taxpayer money. Now, as Johnny mentioned too, I'm not going to stand in the way, because y'all need to function and be successful, because your success is our success. And I think we all recognize that. Sounds like it's unanimous up here. And so, but just for clarity's sake, this is a one-time ask. Hopefully when what you're pursuing, you'll never have to come before us again, but at least we can kickstart it at this point. So I will say that then from what we're seeing, Brian and Margaret, as far as direction goes, are we willing to give the full 30,000 commitment?
I think it's our future. I really do. When I look at Burke County,
Mr.
we
Chair,
got pass-through tourists, but this is going to bring people to our county, McDowell County.
Mr. Vice Chair, I agree with the thoughts and ideas that we're boosting the most money, and would be real nervous if I thought most of the work would be going to Buncombe County. My thought on this, and that's the reason I said we give a $30,000 one-time donation, but after that we reconsider, simply because if it doesn't work the way we want it to work, and there's not great plans somewhere in the future to correct it. But I think for now, I see this project as a 4 or 5 county joint venture. And if you're going to start an operation and an organization, you need some funding to get it in first gear at least. So, and that's the reason I agreed to do it anyhow. But that was my biggest negative thought, but I got over it.
All right. Thank you.
And we,
Commissioner
just to
Taylor.
point out, we're not doing much work in Buncombe County. We're only trying to get them to agree to at least get it to Black Mountain, because we're right there at Ridgecrest. And we're working with Ridgecrest that's going to do something that's going to connect up some trails as well. But we're not going to, Burke County's still got trails to put on the ground. We heard the presentation, and y'all are far ahead, but you still got some. And we think you can do that quicker, and we're willing and want to help you do that. So it's not only maintenance, that's something, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and
Sure.
we want to work with Shane and help y'all do the rest of it, because y'all can get it completed first. You're in a great position, and as been said, this is going to attract people to Burke County. You're going to get most of the benefit out of this at this time. McDowell, I think, has got potential. Buncombe is not right now, and quite frankly, they're basically telling us they don't need it because they've got so much other stuff bringing
Sure.
people to Buncombe and Ashland.
Judge Beth, thank you so much. I guess the direction of the board then, staff is will commit to the 30,000 for this one-time upcoming budget. Thank y'all. Have a great day. Moving on to item number 4, fiscal year 2021-2022 budget explanation of change in items of note, presented by Margaret Pierce, our deputy county manager, finance director.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So you have the notes in your packet, but we'll go through them briefly, and I wanted to mention a few things that aren't on there about our revenues. As you can tell, we're up estimates in ad valorem property taxes. that somewhat relates to all the additional building and permits that we've talked about in the past year, where we've added some properties and things, increased values due to renovations going on, and also collection rates. Our sales tax is budgeted with approximately a 3% growth. We're being conservative, knowing that the past year we have seen unusual spending due to the stimulus funds that have been put into the economy, due to the increase in unemployment benefits to citizens. So some of those funds have maybe been one-time, although some will continue into the next fiscal year. But we do anticipate minor growth in sales tax. Your other revenues will be basically level. We'll see some increase in DSS revenues coming back from the state. Otherwise, our revenues are fairly consistent with prior years. With that said, I'll move into the expenditures. The AIDS and Donation Department was recommended with a $2,055 increase. We will go ahead and add the $40,000 you've discussed here to make that a $42,000 increase to that area. The $2,000 minor increase related to conflict resolution, adding 7 hours of services a week for court mediation and the worthless check program they do in Burke County. Animal Services requested 2 new positions, and 1 is recommended for an animal care specialist. That will be another animal technician. That increases their overall budget approximately $48,000, along with other minor operational increases. Building increase, inspections will increase approximately $3,545. This has to do with just various increases in benefits. One of the overall benefit changes is retirement system increases. The state increases that, and we have to abide by that increase. It is 1.25% of all full-time salaries. Anyone in the retirement program, we have to pay that in. So overall, you'll see some departments that is really the predominant change. Burke County Schools requested no increase and is being recommended to stay at the current level as they requested. We are evaluating with their staff, though there's a bill still out there that the state may fund 1 nurse per school. We are currently funding 11 nurses, and if that happens, then we would no longer be paying out that $891,000. We're both aware of, if that changes, they understand they would reduce that, what they're getting. But we may not know in time for the new budget because the state does not always meet the June 30th deadline. Communications Department, there's a decrease. That really ties to that new software you approved from Motorola and the portion that's in the current year budget that won't be in next year's. The only capital was free radio replacements are included within their request. Community Development and Planning will have a decrease in the recommended budget. They did request 1 position for a new administrative person that is not recommended at this time. They did have a $30,000 one-time grant for abandoned mobile home removals in their budget, and that's what the $28,000 decrease ties to. And Cooperative Extension will have a minor increase, $5,165. That would tie to benefit increases from NC State and minor salary increases because the state plans right now to have an increase for salaries of state employees. They did request furniture replacement for 2 of their offices, a tractor to do some outside work, and a small van or bus to transport with, and we were not able to include any of those requests in this year. The county manager's office budget will see an increase in the recommended budget over current year of $127,290. That ties to the position requested by the county manager. The court system had an increase of $100 in their request. This is the off year where they have, or on year as you want to call it, the jury commission payments out this year. Debt service will have a decrease of $271,080. DSS will have an increase of $749,863. They requested 7 new positions. At this time, none are recommended. We are going to be exploring whether any of the ARP funding, the American Rescue Plan funding, may assist us with funding some of those positions. We met twice, Rhonda and I, with their leadership team, Corey, Matt, and worked through what we could do and what we may be able to do. And at this time, they understand where that's going. The economic services portion of their department is in the pay plan study, and that is tied somewhat to their increase. The other major portion of their increase ties to the benefits programs, where pass-through funds for foster care, adoption, board payments, etc. A portion of that is also tied to the revenue increase for their department, because some of those funds come back at varying rates, 50%, 75 cents, 87. Yes, sir.
Do you anticipate any of the ARP money will be available for DSS? You painted me a picture there, but it's a broad picture of ARP. What do you anticipate would be in ARP that could be used for DSS?
We're still waiting on final guidance, which is not due out until the middle of July. So the interim guidance talks briefly about funding them as essential positions to assist with economic stabilization, but it isn't clear.
Which means what?
Exactly. It is not clear what they mean by that, so we need to see that final guidance to understand where we might go with those. In our discussions, with Brian and Rhonda and I, and trying to evaluate those positions requested, it may be something that if those funds aren't, some of the things in our budget, not just this, if we find that we're wrong about our initial read on those funds, we maybe have to come back and talk about what that means mid-year. But at this point in time, we aren't certain that will be able to fund any positions from there.
All right. Thank you, Margaret, for that explanation.
Margaret, that 749,863 was declined, but you're saying that the increase of 477,840 is due to beneficiary program funds. Since that's a state institution, that should not take local county dollars. Why is that on there?
I didn't hear the first part of what you said, but those beneficiary programs are not 100% state funded. There are county dollars in them. Some of those programs run through us first and we get reimbursed from the state, the portion they're willing to put in. Some of those the state funds and then bills us for our portion. But the programs I'm talking about, board payments for children that qualify under the 4E program, would be at, say, an 87% funded by federal and state dollars and the rest by county dollars.
Is part of that 477,840 the 2 vehicles recommended?
No, sir. They had 2 vehicles in this year and they'll have 2 vehicles in next year, so that really isn't part of the increase. But we are continuing replacement of vehicles there to make sure they have a safe fleet to transport the clients.
Well, it still is a very questionable action for the Barrett County to supply funds and vehicles to state employees.
They're Burke County employees, Mr. Taylor?
How are they Burke County employees? They work for DSS.
Yes, sir.
Department of Social Services.
Correct. The Burke County Department of Social Services is a county department. Although they fall under certain state guidelines, they are all county employees.
Do we get reimbursed for those money we spend for them?
Some, it depends on which program.
Yeah, I thought most of those programs was a pass-through budget.
Not always. We receive approximately $12 million in state and federal dollars to fund the Department of Social Services, but the overall budget is approximately 18 million. There's a county portion on most of their programs. There are some that are 100% wash, but there's quite a few that are not.
So just rough numbers, Margaret. So if our budget's 18.5 million and we're getting reimbursed that 12 million from state, and I know some of them are 65, 75, 80%. It is a little confusing, but to the well, even those of us been doing budget for years about how each position is funded. But basically, out of our monies, out of Burke County, we're spending $6.5 million.
Yes, sir.
Roughly. Okay.
Yes, sir. We receive a sheet from the state that gives us all the estimates of what they think we'll need for each program. And it all depends on how many clients they deal with, how many children they take into foster care, how many adults they have under their guardianship, et cetera, that will make the difference in these funding.
Makes it next to impossible to plan, doesn't it?
Somewhat.
Somewhat. So
And they change those allocations throughout the year.
Most definitely.
Well, I think we have to admit that we've been hooked again. That's all I can tell you. The state looks good because they spend 12 and they get $18 million worth of goods. And the county adds up to $6 million difference. That's all the question I have.
Any further questions for Margaret at this point? Okay. Go ahead and continue, Margaret. Thank you.
Okay. Economic development is our next department. There's a decrease there of $225,844, and that really ties a lot to the fact that we had one-time grants or grants that finished paying out from the one NC, the other grants we do with them, and then we may have tax incentives that come and go each year based on what year we're in of those agreements. The election department has an increase recommended of $59,665. They did request a pay increase for their board members, which is not in the recommendation. There are 2 election cycles in the coming fiscal year, and that's really what that increase is, where last year they only had one in March. Now they'll have a November and March. EMS has an increase of $425,290. They did request 4 EMT paramedic positions, and they requested that 8 of their part-time positions be RIF, and those are both included into the recommendation. A lot of this ties to Jonas Ridge used to be able, as a volunteer department, to provide assistance on calls out of there, and we only provided 1 staff member. But due to changes in their roster, just as we've seen with other volunteer fire departments over the past several years, they've just not been able to provide that. They still provide us a free space to be, but they just don't have the manpower. So we've been supplementing it with our full-times, which creates an overtime situation. So we are hoping that this will, part of this will be covered by reduction in overtime as we're able to hire these positions in, and that overall we should see some decrease on that part. This department was also in the pay study this year and was recommended for increases that Rhonda will be going over those with you later, but that does tie to some of this increase. There are 2 ambulances included, 1 full ambulance and 1 remount. There is some equipment that they requested that is not in the recommendation, and that is because we feel confident those items will be fundable by the American Rescue Plan. And one of the things, maybe I should have mentioned this earlier, that we're aware of is if we budget for something and later find out it can be funded in the American Rescue Plan, it won't be eligible because that's considered supplanting. We can't include anything in our budget that we want to fund with American Rescue Plan dollars, or they will disallow it. So some of the things that we are not recommending is under a conscious thought that we really hope to fund them through the ARP funds, American Rescue Plan funds, and if we're correct, something like automatic pulse takers, they want additional ventilators for their trucks. Those clearly, even under interim guidance, I see no reason they wouldn't be fundable. So even though he requested them with us, they'll be bought, just not through county dollars. Finance Department.
Commissioner Marshall?
Sorry.
No, I was going to be a little facetious. It's not conscious. It's nothing but a flipping guessing game is what you're playing here, correct?
Yes, sir.
With the ARP money. I don't understand how we're supposed to be able to budget if we don't know what to budget for with the ARP money. That's a lot. In what year did we have to have it spent by?
You have to have it spent by December 31st of 2026. You have to have it planned and basically committed by 2024, December 31st of 2024. Needs to be in a plan, already started, and just finished. You have 2 years to finish paying the bills on it and finish those projects.
So when you and Brian find out how we actually can spend the money, what kind of plan do you have to come back to let us know?
That once we are able to identify those, we're going to bring that to you. There's 4 main areas under that funding, Johnny. One is considered public health. And public health is incredibly broad, and that's one of the ones we need some more guidance on. But it is clear that medical equipment to assist your citizens, provide better response, like automated pulse taking machines so you have less contact, additional ventilators, those should be fine. Positions are a little more questionable under that, and exactly what else is under public health would be somewhat questionable. The second one would be revenue loss. Now, Scott has been studying the pages and pages. The initial document was 151 pages. We have read it. There are some things that are clear and some things that just aren't. So the pages on revenue replacement are odd. It's the best way to put it. Scott has been researching and trying to come up with some formulas, but one sentence contradicts the other. So again, until we see that final guidance, just like the last time, this time they're saying they're only going to give us guidance twice.
Okay.
I hope very much that's true.
Let me see if I understood you correctly. If we budget for it and then we come back and try to pay, they call that supplanting and they will disallow it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We would rather take it out of the recommended budget and come back and tell you that we were wrong. We do need to request it within the county dollars, but we're leaving out the things that so far we think are going to be eligible.
Be sure we know what those left out things are that are related to ARP monies.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Those are the only ones so far. The DSS positions that we're going to look at and may or may not come back to you on, depending on their staffing. And then the equipment in EMS that we're not recommending.
Okay, thank you.
Finance Department increases.
Margaret, one quick question.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. And this is just, I made a little note here. I noticed the department requested $150,000 in fuel, and we were allotted, there's allotted $130,000. How do you come up with that number?
We look back historically on the gallons they're spending and the pricing. We try to use our crystal ball to determine what pricing will be in the next year and utilize that to come up with a better idea of what we can and can't do. We buy a wholesale state contract fuel in our tanks, and we just felt like they would be okay with a little bit less.
Okay, I was just curious. I mean, I just found that fascinating.
Very
Thanks.
fair question. Let's see, the increase, some of that is because we have taken, we're consolidating bank accounts, and there used to be a line within the tax department for part of the bank fees, and now they're all under finance. They're not split apart to departments because of how we have done them to save money. We're putting them together to consolidate those. And there also is, I'm requesting we reclassify the accounting clerk position to an accounting specialist, and where it's a 32-hour position, asking that it be made full-time. We've put that out for applications and been unable to fill that position as it stands. It is not at the 32 hours is actually not as attractive as you might think to people, especially in accounting. And the accounting clerk position is, the pay rate is not to where anyone with skills would be able to fill the position. We received 3 applications the last time we put it out, and none were qualified. Fire Marshal is a decrease of $7,580. That just really ties to a couple of hazmat projects that he had in this year. He did request that we create and pave the parking lot at the storage building, upgrade it slightly, and a forklift for out at his storage building that are not included at this time. The garage has a small increase, $4,535, and some of this is due to the fuel. We purchase the fuel through the garage and then allocate it back to the departments. So when we're seeing pricing increases, you'll see it hit that garage department for what we leave in inventory at the end of the year. General Services has an increase of $18,380. They did request 1 position for a grounds maintenance person, and that was not included in the recommended budget at this time. 4 vehicles were requested and 1 is recommended. We have found them 2 vehicles out of surplus that we chose not to sell for this year that we just received into surplus that are usable for another year or so to get them by. So they are actually going to receive 3 vehicles of the 4 they requested, just 2 aren't new. They did request also 2 additional mowers, specialized mowers for different circumstances, and those were not recommended at this time. They would have limited places they needed to be used, and we felt like it was best to go another route. The building part of General Services has an increase of $53,122 at this time. Within all the different maintenance repairs on our buildings, as we've talked about at our retreat, our buildings need some TLC, and this year's focus is really going to be on roof repairs. We've included $321,800 for estimates on different roof repairs that are needed. There is also included a new camera AV system for the courthouse, which is approximately $206,000. This will take where the courthouse has 3 separate camera systems with varying degrees of delays of when you see what's on there, what's happening, into one system. So they won't have 3 logins, they'll have 1. We'll modify the wiring and the switch system so that it's live. We felt like that was a major safety concern of the building. And the courtrooms actually aren't really ADA for hearing particularly, so we are going to upgrade the audio systems to make sure that all our citizens with challenges are met. The $150,000 is included for phase 2 of the HRC building. We know how important that is, and that will roll in more of the temperature control system renovations that we've started this year. This is one where ARP funding is going to hopefully be used for the HVA system repairs that we anticipate needing in the coming year. It does talk in the initial guidance that if you are improving ventilation and clarifying and renovating how you're filtering the air in your buildings, that is eligible. So again, that one sounds like it's going to be fine, so we do feel comfortable taking it out of the current budget, and we'll shift those to that funding and also look at modifying possibly even more buildings than were requested so that we can make sure we're giving the best air to our employees and citizens within the buildings. The governing board has an increase of $3,005. 1 position was recommended, or requested, excuse me, and not recommended. This will include, I think you guys are all up for new computers, so you will be receiving those during the coming fiscal year. The health department will show a decrease of $39,790. 1 reclassification was requested and recommended. A portion of the department is in the pay study cycle, and some of the that will show in Rhonda's notes when she gets to it. Some of their funding is specific to pandemic one-time things, and we won't track that through the department. That's why you see a minor decrease, because it's specialized multi-year funding similar to other things. So it's outside of their normal budget. When we present you with the final document on the budget, last week she received a notice that she had been awarded $915 more in her breastfeeding program, and she requested that we include it. It was after the recommended budget was published, so we'll include that in the final. You'll notice that minor change of $915 in her revenues and her expenses. Human Resources Department has an increase of $86,305. Part of this is tied to the new position that was approved in March to include a full year of funding for that position, salary and benefits. Also was requested, she has a 35-hour-a-week position, and she's requesting the other 5 hours a week for that human services specialist that is included in the recommendation. There is an increase in the clinic contract, the same per member per month fee, but we have more members on using the program, so that increased the annual allocation for that. Rhonda's department, you may not be aware, out of the 5, she actually only has 2 full-time, and she's handling over 700 employees with 2 full-time people and 3 part-time. So we really felt like that extra 5 hours a week really makes a difference in what can be done, more than you might think. It adds up. Information technology has a decrease of $26,465. One position was requested to give them an admin position. They currently don't have one, so we have one of their analyst specialists handling all of their paperwork, and with the department having grown the way it is and the needs in technology having grown, they need someone doing administrative. That person will be the first line of duty to answer the phones and direct it to the right person instead of them all having to try to cover the phones every time. They do have a small decrease due to some one-time capital in the current budget where we finished the data center consolidations in the current budget. Legal is recommended at the same as the current year, and that's based on historic spending and projected legal matters. Library has a small decrease of $2,760. He did request 1 reclassification of a library program specialist to a senior library program specialist and 7 seasonal positions, and those are recommended. He did request 1 additional part-time position for 18 hours a week. That was not included in the recommended budget. He is changing all their software to a all-new program called Cardinal NC. Under the old program, we paid about $30,000 a year for a maintenance agreement. Cardinal doesn't have that. It'll be approximately $7,000 a year, but the new program does require you to be proactively swapping books around. People within the state can request our books, or within the county can request from one library to the other, and we're required to provide that. So the vehicle that's included in his budget will be funded under that $30,000 he won't use this year for maintenance agreement, and then he wanted the position to be able to move those books around, but he's willing to look at taking a year to evaluate how much work it does generate for his staff and see whether he will request the position again next year. Mental health has a decrease of $54,305. When we met with partners, they came to us, and what they need is the same funding, $265,000, to run the programs for Burke County. But they also let us know that over the past few years, they've had some savings for various reasons, and they have $305 that they could use from those savings of money we've given them to help fund this year. So we're actually going to have the same amount of programs, $265,000 worth of services from them, but they're using funds we've already given them that they did not spend to finish out the $265,000. So non-departmental has an increase of $2,885. There is a 2% COLA recommended for all employees, and we budget that in non-departmental until it's awarded, and then we determine the splits out to the department. We had a decrease in retiree insurance estimates and the estimated workers' comp claims. We've had some very good years, so we're hopeful that might continue. And so that's why, although there's funding for the COLA in there, we do see just a very small increase. We did include some money for the facility study within the non-departmental. We are meeting Friday? We were scheduling it earlier today. I think we landed on, no, Tuesday, excuse me. We had 6 firms respond to our RFQ on doing the facility study, and we narrowed it down to the top 3 clients, and we're doing interviews Tuesday with the top respondent, and then if we can negotiate a price, we'll come back to you if it's above the $90,000, either with notice of who we got and what's going on, or that we need your approval to do the contract once we determine a fee. Other public safety, this is NC Forestry, separation allowance, medical examiner fees, JCPC, all fall under this section. There's an increase of $17,510. Some of that is due to several retirements within the separation allowance area, and a small increase for the NC Forestry service contract. Recreation has an increase of $10,565. We did include a truck. He needed a diesel truck to help pull some of his equipment around, and crossing flashers for 3 trail crossings at Fontaflora Trail is in there. He did request equipment and a building to put up at the lake, and we were not able to fund those in this year's recommendation. Register of Deeds has an increase of $14,863. There is 1 position recommended, and within her budget, she requested it. She was able to provide documentation on the number of staff in surrounding counties of her size, the number of documents they're processing on average, which fully supported the request for additional position. Senior Services has a decrease of $68,600. A lot of that has to do with that large drainage expense we had there in the current year. So this is not a change in services by any means. They will still have the same. The block grant funding is anticipated to be level with prior years. So Sheriff's Department is a decrease of $730,114. The sheriff will be here Thursday to talk with you about his budget requests and recommendations. 5 new positions were requested, and none of those are included in the recommended budget. Some of the major capital requests included Viper radio replacements, 8 patrol car vehicle replacement. Those are included in the recommended budget. Some of the requests that were not recommended include funding the 24/7 outside legal services, the 2 vehicles for narcotics officers, 2 vehicles for other law enforcement, body cameras, and tasers for all, taser program for all officers. The decrease ties a lot to that, again, that software, that Motorola software that's in this year in his budget. And then he had additional vehicles in this year's budget that were not able to be purchased during 1920, so they moved to the 2021 budget because they were ordered and didn't come in time to be paid in 1920.
Margaret, on under equipment of all those different things that he asked for, how much were the body cameras? Do you know that off the top of your head?
$954,000. That does not include the annual storage fee based on how much data is. That can run, I believe the estimates are in the $60,000 to $70,000 a year range for the storage. But if they record more than anticipated, that number just continues to go up.
How many cameras could be bought for $954,000?
One moment.
Yes, ma'am.
That was a trick to give me a break to swallow, wasn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
That would be it appears to be for 100 officers.
For 100 officers, it's 954,000.
Yes, sir.
I wonder how long this fine camera would last us. Do we know that? If you don't, that's okay.
2.5 years is the normal estimate.
2.5 years.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pick myself up in just a moment.
That's a lot. Thank you, Margaret.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay. The jail is an increase of $430,075. The continuation of the position you temporarily approved in March is not included in the recommendation for the sworn lieutenant. Primary reasons for that increase tie to those salary increases approved in March and some building equipment service agreements where they were still under warranty in the last fiscal year. Some of that's done and we have to pay for the maintenance agreements now and the warranties going forward. Some of the requests not recommended included a whole body scanner, a metal detector, and an infrared camera and scanner. They requested additional dual band radios. They wanted an additional parking lot and fencing for their staff area, an electronic medical records program, and they wanted to increase the funds to do outside bed rentals. The one item in this list that we are evaluating under the ARP funds is the fence around the staff parking lot. That would be considered a social distancing mechanism to provide that opportunity for keeping unknown public from your employees. Soil and Water had a decrease of $20,915. They have a vehicle replacement in the current year and they will not have one in the next budget. That was approximately $23,000, I believe. Tax is an increase of $458,270 overall. One position was requested for an appraiser, and that is included. 2 vehicles were requested, and we have included one. $720,000 was requested for the contracted appraisal company that Danny spoke to you previously about, and we included $350,000 in a phased-in approach for this. The revenue from this, I know one of the things talked about when Danny came before was how soon would we see revenue out of this, that list and measure. We really won't see it until revow in 2023, which would be the 23-24 budget. So we felt like a phased-in approach, giving them one staff member in-house and then hiring the company to start getting some of that done was an appropriate way to attack that. Transfer to other funds is increase of $66,500. The transportation, which is Greenway, asked for a $15 increase. That is included. Veteran Services, an increase of $415. Western Piedmont Community College, it's an increase of $946,875. They had a small carry forward of projects, but really what this is the $1 million match for the program that we approved and said we would fund in this year. So when you're looking at our overall budget, within the recommended budget, we have $1,540,190 of use of fund balance, general fund balance. Within that number is $350,000 for the tax appraisal contract that's new and unusual, and $1 million for Western Piedmont's building project. So those two one-times leave us with $190,000 being used for other projects, programs, etc. That number will go up slightly with the $40,000 you've all asked us to add to the approved budget. That's the end of the general fund section. Are there any questions on general fund at this time?
Any questions, gentlemen?
Mr. Vice Chair, I want to go back to recreation just a moment if I can. I saw something about caution lights in there. What in the world is that?
It's rapid flash beacons for 3 of the trail crossings to really bring attention to the fact that people are walking across the actual main roads.
Okay.
They wanted to spotlight those 3 crossings for a safety measure.
So we only have 3 crossings across the highway?
That are such that we feel they need to have some sort of warning device there to let motorists know that, and also show that we have attempted to accommodate that for the trails that we've designed and put there that cross the roads at possibly not the best place, but that's the only place they were able to cross.
The DOT won't help us on that.
Not that we're, not so far, no, sir. They have, it's been requested and I don't believe it's going to be fulfilled. So we felt it important to include that safety measure.
So is there warning signs or just flashing lights?
I want to believe they're flashing lights.
Rapid flash beacons, and I believe I have a picture.
That's okay.
I think it's like a triangle with lights on it.
Okay.
And that was actually a question I had too, because being in Parks and Rec, you know, I don't think that was a high recommendation. You know, I'm not saying it's not important, but, because from a safety reason, but from a recommendation from the department, the building and fence up at the park was the #1 request. And personally, I'm a little disappointed not seeing that in there, because we're having to drag equipment from the dump all the way up to the lake. And we're pretty much going to have a 1 full-time position up there maintaining that trail, and having to cross the county with equipment when we could have equipment up there for basically what those blinking lights cost. I think it's based about exactly dollar for dollar, that actually got us a concrete pad, got us a building that is secure with a 10-foot fence around it. And I would rather see that than flashing lights. I think we need both, personally. I'd like to see both in there, but just going by what is requested, I think that's more important. Just my opinion.
Mr. Vice Chair, I have
Yes, sir.
5 quick questions I wrote down as was going through this. Margaret, do we know the ADM average of the schools, and what budget have they been given from the state at this point? Do you know?
The last we spoke with Keith and interim superintendent Swan, they won't have their ADM numbers until, their specific numbers until the third month of school, I believe. And they have been told to project on the same budget as current year at this time. They will have a small decrease because they did know this year's ADM was down slightly.
When I asked at our meeting, when he did his quarterly report, he told me they were down to 11,800 or 900, somewhere in that category. It's a little under 12,000.
That they were down, or that their number was?
That's the number they had.
Yes.
The
I think that's
highest, which was probably now 6, 7 years ago, 5 years ago maybe, was up close to 16,000. And I just wondered what that was doing to the budget. And under manager, you have $127,290 for a position. What position?
That's going to be for assistant county manager.
Assistant.
The assistant county manager, as you're aware, we had a change with our planning director, and in looking at that, the position had been deputy county manager / planning director. We felt that the pool of people that would have those capacities would be very small. As you're aware, in about 17 to 19 months, I will be retiring. This is an opportunity to bring somebody on board, especially with these ARP funds and possible major projects, that we can have that person here. That gives the board options when my retirement comes to make that person the interim county manager, or you can look at going ahead and advertising for a new county manager, but it gives you options, and it's just a good opportunity to, like I said, give you some options here in order to try to provide some sort of consistency from the time that I leave until you get a new county manager.
Okay, we did have 2 deputy managers, is that correct?
Yes, and we just did the change, last month, to just make that a planning director and not a deputy county manager / planning director. So that job is gone back to being just a planning director at a lower pay grade.
I had a question about DSS, and I don't know what it was. I put down $477,840, which was an increase. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. You asked me about those programs.
Oh, I did, didn't I? Okay. Changing banks costing us $20-some thousand. Why do we want to change banks?
We actually didn't increase the cost, we reduced the cost. It was budgeted at approximately $28,000 in tax over the last few years. So we've been able to reduce the fees by combining our checking accounts down from, I think it was, trying to remember exactly how many when I first got here. I think it was about 12. We're down to 5 checking accounts. So we've consolidated some programs. We reworked our lockbox. We moved our lockbox services from BB&T over to First Citizens, which has reduced our fees on all of those programs. It's just that it used to be budgeted in multiple places, and now it's budgeted in one. So overall to the county budget, it's not an increase. It just looks, it's an increase within the department.
The increase was, I found it now, $17,537. Relates to shift of bank charges to finance from tax with transfers to lockbox to First Citizens. So it costs us to change banks $17,535.
No, sir, that's the department increase overall. A portion of that's related to the change in the position that's requested and recommended. The rest of it, the fees are staying somewhat stable, going up minorly because of the amount of transactions we have.
Okay, you've got reclassification of county clerk to accounting specialist.
Yes, sir.
And additional 8 hours a week. What did he work before, or she?
The position currently is a 32-hour job. It's been open for a year. I've not been able to fill it for a year, so we've worked with one less person.
So that's a catch-up move.
Yes.
Yeah. Governing board, what position was requested?
An administrative position to assist the clerk.
I didn't hear you.
An administrative position to assist the clerk.
You answered my questions. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from the commissioners on item number 4? If not, we will move on to item number 5. Margaret, proposed fee changes, please.
We didn't cover the other funds. Do you want to? That was only general fund.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do that.
We can go through them briefly. They're very, very quick.
And then roll into the fee. Okay.
Sorry.
Absolutely.
Sales tax funds will have an increase. That has to do with the sales tax increases we are seeing overall. The 911 fund, emergency telephone system funds will have a decrease, $220,000. That's due to that one-time Motorola funding in current year. Trail projects fund for new capital there has a decrease of $13,500. Met with Shane, and he felt like there's no new county funding requested this year or recommended. He's working on finishing up a lot of grants and needs the year to take care of all the existing projects and funding to make sure he meets all the guidance on those. Water sewer fund will have a small decrease, a decrease of $164,210. There's one position requested and not recommended. There's funding for one vehicle and general maintenance and repairs along with some debt service included. Rate increases will be bringing up in the next item for that department. Water sewer fund is one where ARP funds will have a significant impact. That is one of the 4 areas, is water sewer infrastructure. What they have not defined for us yet is exactly what infrastructure will be allowable, but it says anything that meets the EAP guidelines, DEQ guidelines, it's those type of fundings, Clean Water Trust Fund guidelines. If it meets those type of guidelines for a project, it would be eligible under these funds. So we do anticipate being able to do some significant water sewer projects within the funding we're receiving. And as soon as we're clear on those projects, we will come back to you. So we are not recommending several of the repairs, and we did meet with Mark on this, maintenance and repair things that we're going to be able to shift the funding to our federal dollars are not included as requested. Solid Waste Fund has an increase of $139,744. They requested an additional full-time truck driver. What we've recommended is that they take their part-time truck driving position and make it full-time and be able to utilize that better. We are also including $191,000 for a roll-off truck that they requested.
Margaret, go back to the sales tax funds. Is that one of the articles? Is that a 39 or a 42, that 1,351,000?
There's 2 articles in that. It is 39 and 42.
44 or 42?
40. Hang on, sorry. The funds start rolling together. Oh, 42.
42, that's a combination of 39
Yes.
and 42 going directly to the schools?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What, but never mind.
Yeah.
The 39's regular sales tax, 39's up for us, right?
Yes, sir. That one we're projecting up about $886,000. That's the
see it
3%.
now. That's it. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. Moving on to fee changes. If everyone's good on those.
Any other questions concerning those before we move on to fee changes? If not, please carry on.
Okay. We received requests from Animal Services, Building Inspection, Planning and Zoning, Solid Waste, and Water Sewer and EMS for fee increases. We evaluated these with those departments, and they know their needs best and what meets. We do ask them always to check around the surrounding counties, the state guidance, what's standard practice within these industries. You'll see listed for Animal Services several changes. Some are a change in what it's called, animal bite pickup. She'd like it needs to be bite quarantine pickup fee, and will be $20 per pet. I think that clarifies a little bit better. The owner surrender fee per pet, $10 per pet, not a single $10. Under building inspections, they had a plan review fee that was variable based on many factors about the program, and they would like to request to go to a flat $100 fee. They said this is an average cost for what is requested under that and would simplify it for the citizens and the staff if it's one flat fee. Planning and zoning has several fee changes listed there. These relate to the state plans and how they do some of these. Solid waste is basically a 5.5% across the board. This is, and water sewer is the same. This is to try to get their fees covering as much expense as possible and hopefully their capital needs. When you look through their budget, you'll see we weren't able to meet all their capital needs, and that's because the funds just aren't available, and we need to be able to generate the revenue within these funds to cover their expenses. And then under EMS, we are proposing that currently the rates are not set. They don't have a floor, a base, and we would like to see the industry standard is to use Medicare expenses as your base and decide what percentage above that you feel like the fee should be. And we recommend 135% above Medicare. Industry standards actually 150% above to 200%. However, our surrounding counties are closer to this 135, and we decided that was best for our citizens to use that rate. All of these will generate minimal revenue changes for those departments and increases. Any questions on the proposed fee changes?
Any questions, gentlemen?
Yes, just one is, under the EMS, all rates will be 135% of Medicare rates.
Yes, sir.
What if people don't know that Medicaid care rate? How do we determine that based on, I get more complaints of the high cost of the ambulance trip to the hospital than anything else in my part of the county.
So when we were looking at those fees, we realized that some of our fees were lower than Medicare rates, so we weren't even getting the amount we needed to from Medicare that we were eligible for. Some of our fees were as much as 200% above Medicare rates, so we wanted to bring those down to be more in line. And it's an industry standard in EMS billing that it be just a percentage above these Medicare rates. And this way, as Medicare changes, we'll still receive, since our predominant billing does come through Medicare eligible clients, we wanted to capture the revenue that we could from Medicare, and then only be a set percentage above that for the rest, so that it was fair and equitable in our minds for everyone.
Well, it's never a problem if you have Medicare or if you have money to pay. I have a neighbor not too far from me, 2 miles. She had a very bad ailment, I'll get it right in a minute. But the insurance quit paying. She lost all funds of income, and she had to have a lift and all that to get to the doctor and back. But some of those trips cost her $1,100. And of course, she had a whole lot of trouble coming up with the money sometimes. And, you know, there's nothing I could tell her other than she needed to ask or get a quote before she got in the vehicle. Because normal people just quit coming because she couldn't pay the bill. It was a sad situation, but I'm just wondering why we're doing 135% of Medicare, why we just don't do 100% of Medicare, because it becomes a larger burden for many of the older people, citizens. So what's the difference in the money if you tally it up for the year is the question.
Our
Estimate, I know you don't have that figure in front of you.
Our collection and billing company that we contract with to handle our billing and collections had actually recommended the 200% to 150 to 200%, because that's what they see statewide. They have multiple customers across the state, and they said that's what they see their average being. We didn't want to go that far. We actually are going less than the recommended to us rate at 135%. The bulk of our collections come through insurance, Medicare being one of those, and we felt like this was an appropriate way to set the fees, so that, and we are now consistent with other counties around us as well, and other ambulance systems doing this. I'm not sure I'm answering your question. Overall, with this change, we'll see approximately $150,000 is our estimate in increased revenue. And again, that means our revenue is still just below $4 million, and our expenses for this department are just over $6 million. So the county's subsidizing these rates for our citizens. We are still helping them pay. Maybe they don't see it in their bill, of course, I know, but the county is doing what they can to keep them from paying the full cost of these services.
Well, she was shocked to find out that an ambulance fully equipped is well over $200,000, and it just takes a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I encourage people to shop around, especially since there's several good transport systems available in the county if they feel like it's too high. So And I think she does, so. But I just wondered that 135% over Medicaid care rates seems high to me. But you answered the question.
Any other questions or comments? One thing, Margaret, we were talking, Commissioner Taylor's talking about the ambulances, the ones we budgeted, that they do have those lifts that we've been installing, correct?
Yes, sir. Those lifts are transferable. As we buy vehicles, we'll be able to move those with it. All we'll pay was, as part of our like a new ambulance is roughly $220,000. It will have the track in the floor, and then we'll just be able to pop the stretcher into that from the one that we're getting rid of.
Fantastic. Thank you. Gentlemen, ladies, does anybody need a recess for 2 or 3 minutes? Or is everybody good to go? Okay, we'll go ahead and continue then. We'll move on to item number 6, presented by Rhonda Lee, our HR director.
I actually have a handout for you guys.
Sure. Probably leave one for Jeff. I'll just leave it right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and Commissioners. I'm pleased to bring before you our second year of the second cycle of our pay study. That's where we're studying a third of the workforce. And so this past year, we actually contracted with the same group that we've been contracting with for the prior years. That's Piedmont Triad Regional Council. And the cost of that was $6,500 for the actual study. And the groups that we looked at this year were the administrative support occupations. That includes Register of Deeds and Cooperative Extension. We also reviewed the economic program occupations and legal occupations with DSS. We looked at health program occupations, not public health nurses, but health program occupations. We reviewed EMS, all of those occupations, and also the deputy fire marshal and the fire inspector occupations. And what I handed out to each of you, these are the recommendations to the actual pay plan for this coming year. And I hate to read all these off to you, but I'll kind of summarize for you. EMS was the one by far that was off market more than pretty much anything else we had in the county. The last time they were studied was, of course, 3 years ago. We've had movement in the market from other counties that surround us, and also we've had a little bit of pressure just in the last year from the hospital. The hospital has been recruiting paramedics it's kind of a combined, that they'll hire a medical office assistant, a CNA, or a paramedic. And so we've had a little bit of pressure from the hospital that we normally haven't had in the past from paramedics. So in short, the whole paramedic grouping is recommended to go up 10%. That includes your part-time employees as well. For the shift captain and the major, there was a recommendation for 15% increase. We needed to have a little bit more pay grade difference between those levels, contingent upon what those folks do, what the captains and the majors do. So that is for EMS, what is recommended. And just so you guys all know, this has already been included in what Margaret just read off to you guys. Everything's included in the budget there as well. The next group that we looked at were basically, we have a lot of different admin positions in the county. We have like an administrator 1, we have a senior administrative technician, and all that. So as you look down this list here, on the admin side, the groups that were recommended for increase is we have 1, administrative specialist supervisor, and that was recommended to go up one pay grade, which is 5%. And then we have several administrative technicians throughout the county, and they were recommended for a 5% increase. The assistant register of deeds, they were also recommended for a 5% increase. And then we're going to shift on to DSS. The community employment case manager, that one was recommended for a 5% increase. I'm going to skip down here. Our income maintenance folks, those are all kind of grouped together, and they were all recommended for a 5% increase. I'm going to shift back up there. The deputy fire marshal, they were significantly off of market rate. They were studied 3 years ago, but there's been, again, movement in that area as well. So they were recommended for 15%, which is 3 pay grades difference. So that's significant as well. Let's see if I can pick up on these others. I'm not going over the ones that have 0 recommendations. The fire inspector was also recommended for a 3 pay grade increase. Our foreign language interpreter, that was recommended. There's a couple of those, there's not just one, but they were recommended for a 5% increase. Then we come down, I already talked about the income maintenance groups going up 5%. Then we had the medical lab technician and medical lab technologist. Those are both out of the health department, and they were recommended for a 5% increase, as well as their nutritionists, 1, 2, and 3. Coming down here, office assistant is also considered under the admin category. We didn't have any recommendation there, nor on our paralegal. There was no recommendation for increase there. We have processing assistants throughout the county and program assistants throughout the county, and they primarily work in DSS and health departments. They were also studied, well, all these were studied 3 years ago. There was no pay increase at that time, and so now they're recommended for the 5% increase. On the public health education side, all of those categories are recommended for a 5% increase, and that pretty much sums up the recommended increases for this year that, as I said, have been included in the recommended budget from the county manager.
Rhonda, just for clarity's sake, because it does get a little confusing when we're talking about all these DSS positions.
Oh,
If we're recommending a 5% increase and we're getting paid back 80%, so we're actually coming up with county dollars of 1%, or am I wrong on that?
What was the last part of that?
Well, if we're given a 5% increase and we get reimbursed, just say 80% of that position's salary, we go up 5, do we get 80% of that 5 back? And we only pay 1%?
Yes.
Okay, that's the
it,
numbers
yeah.
I'm looking at. So it's a little deceiving on a lot of these positions that are 5%. It's not actually county monies that we're having to come out of pocket with. It's really only 1% on a 5%.
Not
if
always.
Not
Yeah.
always, but if we're just using
Yes.
the idea that
Yes.
that position is 80%. I know some may be 60, but that's not all out of our,
Correct.
all from us.
And
Okay.
that's one of the reasons their revenues are up roughly $1 million, is partly due to this, that we would see increased revenue back from the state based on different programs and different positions.
Thank you. Any questions, comments for Ron?
Yes, Rhonda, I hope your teaching has paid off in the last, I think you told me that each pay increase was 5%, and pay grade was 5%.
Yes.
Is that
You're
correct?
Yes.
Can you skip down to, and we're not picking on anybody, it's just 2 good examples together.
Sure.
Fire inspectors, about down the middle of the page, and foreign language interpreters. On the fire inspectors, you went 19 to 22, which gives them 15% increase, or does it give them the pay grade raise and also 15%?
Oh, it just gives them 15% increase, period. That's what,
Pardon?
it gives them 15% increase, period, that employee will receive. Just one 15% increase.
So they're not getting a pay grade increase, and on top of that, it would just be what the pay grade.
What it's shifting up to, yeah, with the, they're not double, it won't be double. No,
Okay.
no.
And the next question, you probably don't have an answer, but you can figure it for us sometime.
Okay,
The total cost of all these proposed changes would be how much to the county?
$507,000.
Well, she surprised me, $510,000,
507.
507.
That does not include the reimbursement we get.
No.
So, actual reimbursement is gonna be a good bit less on some of that.
Okay,
That's the increase to the expense budget. The revenues on the other side would increase for the ones within DSS. And some in health would have reimbursement changes based on what program they're in. We'd have to go back and calculate that, but I would say it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of, no, it'd be a complete guess. I'm not going to.
Okay.
Never mind.
Because they all have different reimbursement rates, so we'd have to calculate that out. But yeah, this number is a total, that's a total number,
Yes.
total impact. Mhm.
how many, one more question, Vice Chair. How many people are involved in this list? You've got positions and not persons. What's the total number of people?
285.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Brian?
Rhonda, you were saying that this is one of the larger groups in this 3-year cycle, and that next year's cycle, the group that would be looked at would be smaller than this, so that would be a smaller impact to the budget.
Yeah, that is our hope. Next year, I have it right here in front of me. Let's see if I can find it. Next year, I should have the count. Have it with me.
Approximately 120 full-time and 41 part-time next year.
Thank you, Margaret. I wasn't flipping through these fast enough. But next year includes department heads. It also includes Parks and Rec, library, talking off the top of my head here, but some of the smaller departments are the ones that are slated for study next year. And historically, those have been, the impact's been less.
Okay. I was actually a little surprised when you look down through here that there's quite a few on here that are no recommended raise at all. And I would think after a 3-year period, there'd be some type of recommendation there. But, you know, who's to know? I like environmental health. I mean, you know, I just assumed that would go up. But, anyway, any other questions, comments? Rhonda, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, fantastic. All right, gentlemen. Any other questions or comments in general for staff? There being none, there is our next meeting, recess meeting on May 27th, 2021 at 2 p.m. Do we have a motion to recess to May 27th, 2021 at 2 p.m.? We have a motion. All those in favor state by saying aye. Those opposed? We are recessed. Thank you.